This might be the most shocking leak the league has seen in a decade. A private clip from a broadcast that was never meant for public eyes somehow made its way online. The moment it surfaced, the entire community went into a frenzy. Kyrie Irving honestly believed he had already cut the feed. Thinking he was off the record, he started speaking his truth without any filter. But the words that followed left every basketball fan absolutely breathless. Are we definitely off the air? Because I am completely done pretending that LeBron is a decent human being. He actually went there. And believe it or not, that was just the beginning, because once the full recording started circulating, fans witnessed Kyrie exposing the deep-rooted chaos that took place behind the scenes during those final, high-stakes years in Cleveland. We are talking about ego battles, front office manipulation, locker room friction, and that manufactured sense of brotherhood they sold us. Everything the public believed about their partnership turned out to be nothing more than a carefully crafted facade. As soon as that footage hit social media, the basketball world spiraled into total pandemonium. It was a complete institutional meltdown. Timelines were drowned in disbelief, as if people were watching the sport's history being rewritten in real time. Yet, for those who tracked the team back in 2017, this felt familiar. The friction had been simmering beneath the surface for years, just waiting for the right moment to explode. This trace goes all the way back to that July when Kyrie demanded a trade, choosing to walk away from the biggest stage in the world. Now, 8 years later, he is finally admitting what many suspected. Playing in LeBron's shadow was never about family, it was about being controlled. That revelation sent internet detectives into a frenzy. Fans began scouring old interviews and footage for hidden clues. Those instances where Kyrie looked completely fed up at the podium or isolated on the bench suddenly carried a heavy new meaning. These were not just random reactions, they were red flags. None of us are getting a free pass tonight, and it goes far beyond just Kyrie's perspective. Remember that time a reporter asked if LeBron was a father figure, and Kyrie shut that narrative down in a heartbeat? That exchange hits differently now because asking me if a teammate is my dad was an absolutely insane move from the jump. Man, that was wild. No cap. That was a straight-up crazy thing to ask. He is only a few years older than me. Soon, fans were scrutinizing every greeting, every smirk, and every distant look on the sidelines, realizing they were all pieces of a massive puzzle that no one had noticed. By the time the social media storm settled, one fact remained undeniable. Kyrie Irving was never meant to be anyone's second fiddle. He was always an elite superstar on his own terms, long before any of this LeBron drama started clouding his reputation. Let's be real. LeBron's loyalists love to act like Kyrie didn't shoulder an equal burden during those championship runs. But anyone who witnessed Game 7 in 2016 knows the cold truth. Kyrie was the one who hit the shot. That legendary three-pointer over Curry secured the title and handed LeBron his third ring. Without that bucket, the legacy debate would sound completely different today. Let's stop pretending that Kyrie wasn't operating at the exact same elite level as LeBron throughout that entire postseason. Kyrie essentially saved his skin because LeBron was playing it safe in the corner, basically asking Kyrie to go out and win it for him. To truly grasp how this resentment festered, we have to travel back to 2011, when Kyrie first arrived on the Cleveland hardwood. Long before the media circus, the trade demands, or the high-profile returns, Kyrie was the city's chosen one. The clock is winding down. Kyrie lets it fly. He buries it. Kyrie Irving was the man. The fans adored him. His peers respected him, and he played with a fearless soul that made him the franchise's face. He wasn't interested in hunting for clout or engineering massive super teams to win championships. He never cared about manipulating the media or playing locker room politics. This whole idea of manufactured celebrity is finally dying out. The concept of fame is a facade. People are out here living lies, acting every single day of their lives just to maintain a public image. They aren't even being authentic. But Kyrie? He was just a hooper, pure talent, pure effort, and zero interest in the background noise. When Cleveland chose him as the #1 overall pick in June 2011, the entire city erupted with joy. There was finally a sense of hope again, and Kyrie offered them something genuine. He arrived from Duke after a brief but electric college career. From his very first professional appearance, it was clear he was built for the brightest lights in the league. As a rookie, he put up 18.5 points and over 5 assists, shooting incredibly well from both the floor and the perimeter. Those weren't just freshman stats, they were the marks of a future legend. When he claimed the 2012 Rookie of the Year award with nearly every vote, no one was surprised. That was merely the opening act. From 2012 through 2014, Kyrie simply reached another level of greatness. He was dropping 22 points a night, constantly evolving his game and dominating the headlines with his sheer skill on the court. By the time 2014 arrived, the rookie label was a distant memory. He took over the All-Star game with 31 points and 14 assists, making an MVP performance look like a casual afternoon run. But what truly defined Kyrie wasn't just his ball handling or his jumper. It was his mental approach. He didn't need drama to prove his worth. The man was a pure gym rat. Every scouting report from his teen years to the pros told the exact same story. A quiet, locked-in kid who craved the rock, not the cameras. His old man hammered that mindset home early. You're carrying a high-performance luxury motor under the hood. If you stall out, the whole squad breaks down. That piece of wisdom became his gospel, and he brought that heavy burden straight into the big leagues. Grind in silence, stay out of the fray, and let the buckets do the talking. He lived by the code of keeping your chin down and letting the work scream for itself. To the organization, he wasn't just some flashy playmaker. He was the cornerstone, the literal bedrock they were stacking their future on. And for a hot minute, that was the gospel truth. A fresh-faced royalty in the land, untouchable and absolutely dominant on the hardwood. Long before the static, the King's homecoming, or the media vitriol, Uncle Drew was already lighting it up, etching his legacy one crossover at a time. He never gave a damn about the clout. That blue-collar grit made him the ultimate icon for a city like Cleveland. No need for manufactured drama, fair-weather cliques, or press box mouthpieces. All he wanted was the beautiful, raw essence of the game. Just a kid with wizard-like ball handling, a jumper that didn't miss, and the soul to reignite a city's dying hope. Fast forward to 2014, the dues were paid in full and the crown was earned. The new kid tag was officially dead. An elite all-star, the franchise's heartbeat, and for a fleeting moment, the very spirit of Cleveland hoops. But right when he held the entire city in the palm of his hand, with a legacy building in the shadows, the whole script got torched overnight. 2014 hit like a freight train when the King suddenly declared he was reclaiming his throne back home. 4 seasons after bouncing to chase rings in South Beach, he pulled a total U-turn with 0 heads-up. No ring, no text to the young star, total radio silence. In the blink of an eye, the Cavs went from being Kyrie's kingdom to LeBron's personal sandbox. The moment that "I'm coming home" bomb went off, the entire basketball world shifted its axis. And get this, Kyrie learned the news just like every other fan, staring at his screen while scrolling through social media. Think about that for a second. You're the main attraction. Then you find out your entire career trajectory just pivoted because of a social media post. He was completely blindsided. I discovered the homecoming the same way you did, just like everyone else on the planet. I had 0 inkling and 0 time to get my head right. It's not like I had spending my prime as his wingman on my list of goals. Seriously, I was clueless. The house he'd built stone by stone wasn't his house anymore. Suddenly, he wasn't the lead actor. He was relegated to the Robin role. The shift was seismic. The suits upstairs started folding to every demand the King made. The coaching staff tossed their playbooks to cater to one man, while the talking heads rewrote the narrative by morning. Every lens was locked on the King. His image consultants, brand managers, and press lackeys completely swamped the locker room. Look, sharing the court with him means a tidal wave of cameras. It's a constant tug-of-war over who's telling the story. You're talking about massive spin doctors and heavy-duty locker room politics on a daily basis. Suddenly, the Cleveland Cavaliers weren't just a ball club. They were a traveling stage for one man's pursuit of history. The bright lights never left his side. Kyrie just kept grinding, same world-class talent, same tunnel vision, same relentless hustle. But the atmosphere had soured. Because when the King returned, he didn't just bring his jump shot. He dragged an entire parallel universe along with him. We're talking about the Tinseltown inner circle, high-stakes energy, and those hush-hush parties where you had to sign your life away just to step inside. It was a whole different breed of madness. All of a sudden, names like the bad boy mogul and industry titans were looming over the Cleveland scene. It wasn't about the game anymore. It was about clout, power plays, and keeping a grip on the room. The team's soul started to rot. The brotherhood vibe died, replaced by cold corporate interests. The energy felt murky, staged, and suffocating. Everything became a PR stunt. Nothing felt genuine. But here's the kicker. Kyrie's gut feeling was right on the money. Vintage snapshots began resurfacing. Grainy footage leaked out showing the King deep in the mix at those wild bashes thrown by that famous mogul. That was the moment fans started piecing together the puzzle. This is the same mogul who's now behind bars for some heavy accusations, the same guy caught on camera in that disturbing hallway incident with his former partner. The same figure 50 just put on blast in his latest film, allegedly tying the mogul to the tragic endings of the two greatest legends in rap history. Are you aware of who actually pulled the strings in the Tupac tragedy? I can't say for sure, but with the perspective I have now, I believe that man played a massive role in that legend's passing. That was the company the king kept. Fans were rattled, finally realizing why Kyrie always looked like he wanted to crawl out of his skin in that environment. He wasn't being a diva. He was just shielding his spirit from the darkness. He sensed that toxic atmosphere long before the public noticed. It wasn't about ego or jealousy. He was trapped in a space that had become artificial and power-obsessed. From that moment, his whole perspective shifted. The front office, the press, even casual banter, it all revolved around the orbit of LeBron. For a soul like Kyrie, built on self-reliance and truth, it felt like oxygen was running out. His irritation wasn't about missing the limelight. It was about his spirit being erased. Kyrie always prioritized internal frequency, and the real ones understood that. When that frequency turned sour, he had to bail. Bron's hunger for authority stretched way past the baseline. He craved total mastery over the story, his reputation, and exactly who shared his jersey. He manipulated executive decisions like he was playing both superstar and general manager. The irony? Years ago, he ditched Ohio, claiming the brass was spineless. Yet, upon his return, he made them even more subservient because the entire world revolved around him. Returning to the Cavs wasn't just about rings. It was about absolute dominance. Before that, he played the martyr in Cleveland, swearing he lacked the firepower to win like other icons did. But honestly, when the heat turned up, he went looking for a safety net. He bolted for Miami to join Wade and Bosh, turning that trio into a fortress of security. But once he realized Cleveland had snagged Kyrie, a rising magician with unmatched confidence, he came flying back. This wasn't a sentimental homecoming, it was a chess move. Those short-term contracts weren't standard business. They were purely leverage, tools used to keep the front office walking on a knife's edge. Every move required his seal of approval, or things got ugly. The consequences were immediate. The roster flipped in an instant. Suddenly, his old favorites started showing up out of nowhere. J.R. Smith, Iman Shumpert, Mike Miller, James Jones, Kendrick Perkins, all the usual suspects falling into place on his private board. On August 23, 2014, the Kevin Love deal finalized the takeover. That was the flare in the sky. This was no longer Kyrie's hungry young squad. Cleveland had officially transformed into LeBron's territory. Every single detail functioned around his specific system, his whims, and his schedule. Even the bench wasn't safe. By January 2016, the team was 30-11 when David Blatt was suddenly axed. Who takes the reins? Tyronn Lue. Naturally, the man Bron had been endorsing, the pattern didn't end there. That same blueprint followed him everywhere. In L.A., it was a rerun. He orchestrated the Anthony Davis blockbuster, pushed for Russell Westbrook, and even played a role when the franchise picked his son, Bronny. New city, same playbook. LeBron dictates terms while everyone else adapts or leaves. That just didn't vibe with Kyrie's soul. He lived for creative flow, not a hierarchy. He chose expression over corporate structure. He wasn't designed to be someone's shadow, especially when that person was rewriting the script in the middle of a scene. Sharing the court with a giant like Bron or whoever the media compares him to is an entirely different challenge. It's a completely unique path. You follow me? You're essentially forced to live at the peak of the standings every single night. To the world, it looked flawless. Two legends flashing smiles for the cameras, high-fiving on the sidelines, winning titles. But beneath that polished surface, the foundation was fracturing. That 2017 trade request wasn't some sudden tantrum. It was years of stifled frustration finally boiling over. He'd been faking it for too long, playing nice in a room ruled by one man's ego. In that building, LeBron wasn't just a teammate. He was the entire machine. Other players later noted how he talked down to Kyrie, using that mentor voice and barking orders like he was schooling a kid. That one video went everywhere. LeBron hovering over Kyrie on the bench, preaching mid-game while Kyrie just stared ahead. That silence told the whole story. Handing it back to Sage Steele in the studio. Mark, the second game of our doubleheader is kicking off in Oakland. Every time Kyrie hit the court, he felt that invisible barrier, that unspoken law. The king comes first, the rest comes second. That energy was heavy as lead. You could sense it in the room the way his presence dominated every conversation. It wasn't a partnership, it was a monarchy. Eventually, that friction leaked into the headlines. He wasn't just directing plays on the floor, he was controlling the narrative off it. Every vague post and loaded remark during pressers was entirely calculated. Demanding more playmakers or telling teammates to grow wasn't mentorship. It was a roast disguised as guidance, and Kyrie wasn't having it. This psychological warfare via the media felt like a total slap in the face. During that sit-down, LeBron kept calling him the kid, claiming he only wanted to help the youngster reach his peak. He insisted his only goal was molding the kid into an elite talent. But Kyrie wasn't some green prospect needing a tutor. He was a ring-wearing superstar and a top-tier floor general. When the 2017 trade whispers surfaced, the truth emerged. Kyrie wasn't a traitor, he was a runaway. He didn't just quit the land, he tunneled his way out of a prison. In the shadows, management had been shopping him for Paul George without uttering a single word to him. Just as they'd always bowed to LeBron, they treated Kyrie like a disposable chess piece, leading him to claim he'd finally escaped. That statement resonated because it wasn't a retreat, it was an extraction from a poisonous culture. His skills were undeniable, yet his perspective was completely ignored. Learning the front office was stabbing him in the back killed any remaining loyalty. Once the news leaked, LeBron's reaction was telling. He immediately played the shocked card, acting like he was completely out of the loop. It was a desperate attempt to look innocent, but the critics weren't convinced. Stephen A. Smith unloaded, arguing that LeBron was fully aware and cared more about his brand than the truth. This type of political maneuvering is exactly what makes people lose their minds over him. Now he's scrubbing the narrative to look blameless, acting like he never envisioned a world without Kyrie on the roster. To Kyrie, the writing was on the wall. He was never a cornerstone, just a cog in someone else's machine. He realized he was a tool, not a partner, so he chose the nuclear option, disappearing entirely. No texts, no calls, just total radio silence before dropping the bombshell trade demand. Can you really fault him after the organization double-crossed him twice already? Did you even bother to chat with LeBron before your team told the owners you were done? Not a word. And why would I? People saw it as a low blow, but for him, it was a necessary escape for his sanity. Why engage with a guy who controlled the media, handpicked the coaches, and turned every moment into a publicity stunt? He deserved mental clarity and a life outside of that suffocating shadow. Walking away wasn't just about changing jerseys. It was about abandoning a manufactured empire of optics and power. He was tired of being a subordinate. This was a fight for his own name and soul. Remaining there meant watching his individuality erode day by day. He wouldn't sell his spirit for another man's trophy, but his departure left the city in absolute shambles. Management quickly felt the void as their invincible empire started to look very fragile. The foundation was already crumbling, and Kyrie was the only thing keeping the roof up. Once he bailed, the minor fractures exploded into a full-blown seismic disaster. On August 22, 2017, they shipped Kyrie to Boston for Isaiah Thomas, Jay Crowder, Ante Zizic, and a first-round pick. It seemed like a fair swap initially, but the reality was a nightmare. Thomas arrived with a broken hip. Crowder was a mismatch, the locker room vibe died, and the team looked like they were running through thick mud. That's when the world saw the truth. Kyrie wasn't just a sidekick, he was the team's vital anchor. With Uncle Drew, the offense was an elite machine, boasting a rating of 110.9. Without him, the defense plummeted to 29th, a pathetic showing for a squad that just contended for a title. Their overall efficiency tanked from plus 3.2 to almost nothing, and it wasn't due to LeBron slowing down. The King was still dropping massive stats, but the surrounding structure had completely rotted away. They transformed from a powerhouse into a squad limping through the playoffs, gasping for air. They were nearly bounced in 7 by Indiana, then barely escaped a Kyrie-less Boston in another brutal 7-game war. The joy was gone. They looked like a bunch of hollow shells just going through the motions. Micromanagement suffocated the locker room. James's need for absolute power eventually sparked a total meltdown. The moment Irving vanished, the foundation shattered. Poison filled the air as Isaiah Thomas began attacking his own teammates. Crowder looked like a ghost on court while Kevin Love became the easy target for every failure. Predictably, Cleveland gutted half the squad mid-season, a desperate gamble no legitimate title contender would ever take. That is the price of losing the stabilizer who managed the madness. The fallout shook the entire Eastern Conference. Boston surged into the spotlight, riding the talent of Jason Tatum and Jaylen Brown into a new era. Toronto seized their moment with a 2019 trophy. Milwaukee ascended while Philly geared up for war. The East found its pulse again. Cleveland's iron grip snapped, and the basketball world simply moved forward. That separation didn't just wreck a duo, it redrew the NBA map. Then came the hammer blow on July 1st, 2018. James bolted for Los Angeles to build his next empire. Meanwhile, the Cavaliers didn't just decline. They plummeted straight into the league's basement. No heart, no direction, just empty arenas and blown leads from a squad that forgot how to win. That James-heavy strategy only functioned because Irving anchored the storm. Without him, the facade just evaporated. The king had departed again. But Cleveland surrendered much more than just a legendary superstar this time. They lost the soul who prevented total destruction. After that, their lives drifted toward entirely different destinies. One man hunted new cities and headlines. The other fought to reclaim his spirit and autonomy. James went full Tinseltown, chasing the spotlight and expanding his business dominion. Film deals and media empires defined his brand. Meanwhile, Irving chose a path of total self-discovery and defiance. He valued freedom over fame, seizing the wheel of his career to redefine what winning actually meant. The fan feud never died. James loyalists still claim Irving's exit burned the house down. Yet Irving's camp fires back, insisting he was the one who salvaged the Kings' overall legacy. Honestly, without that icy three-pointer in 2016, James's finals record looks like 3-7, not 4-6. Truth is undeniable. Irving stood his ground against the noise, and eventually, that conviction bore fruit. Despite stops in Boston and Brooklyn, he meticulously reconstructed his reputation piece by piece in Dallas. By 2024, he was dominant, averaging 24.7 points while hitting 40% from deep for the Mavs. He maintained elite efficiency well into his 30s, defying the usual athletic decline. That jumper remains lethal, and his handles remain wizardry. His clutch ability is legendary, but stats aren't everything. Respect became his ultimate victory. Fellow athletes stopped viewing him as a secondary piece and started seeing a master artist at work. New stars mimicked his rhythm and footwork. Suddenly, he wasn't just competing, he was the ultimate professor of the game. In Dallas, the organization embraced him fully, with the staff labeling him the team's vital heartbeat. His value wasn't just in the box score, but in the culture he established. He brought calm authority to the floor and iron discipline to practice, keeping the squad afloat through major injuries. The Mavericks recognized his true worth and refused to let that magic slip through their fingers. News broke that he signed a 3-year extension worth $119 million, proving total mutual commitment. It signaled a deep bond. Dallas trusted the man, and Irving finally found a home that valued him properly. That was his ultimate goal, a locker room that respected his craft rather than focusing on the noise. Then, disaster struck in March 2025 when a torn ligament ended his season abruptly. It was a brutal setback, yet it only highlighted the incredible transformation he had already completed. Fans finally saw the true version, a battle-hardened leader who rewrote his own story on his own terms. Looking at the grand design, this transcends the simple boundaries of professional basketball. This is a story of personal resurrection. A man ditched a rigged system, rebuilt his soul, and proved that greatness shines brightest without a manufactured spotlight. It takes true belief. Did he finally earn your respect? Or is there more to this journey? Post your take below. Smash that like button, pass this to a hoophead, and subscribe for more. Prepare for the coming storm.